Welcome to Next Steps. I'm John Shepard, the lead pastor here at New Day Church.
And I'm Jeff Hunt, Next Steps coordinator. And before we get started, there should be a link below to a PDF of everything that we're going to go over today. And as you go through those PDFs, you'll see there will be fill in the blanks. So if you have a PDF writer, then you can fill in those blanks using that online. But if not, we would recommend you to pause this video and print out a PDF so you can take notes with a pen.
Today we're going to be taking you through step one of the next steps.
Step one is where we connect you with the local church, which is us. So we'll talk about the story of how we were founded, how our church operates, like our government, things that we believe in, and at the end of it, we'll have an opportunity for you to become a member here at New Day.
And then as a member, in step two, serve, we're going to take you through a personality traits profile testing and a spiritual giftings testing to help you discover how God has personally designed you to best serve the kingdom of God.
Absolutely. And step three, the final step, is called empower. And that's where we take you from a position of just serving to now being a servant leader and teaching other people how to move through the process themselves. And if you'd like to attend in person, step one is usually done the first week, the first Sunday of every week. Step two is the second Sunday, and then step three is the third Sunday.
Correct. Well, today we're going to take you through step one, which is our connect process. And our prayer for you during this time comes from the book of Ephesians, chapter 1, verses 17 and 18. And it says this: I ask the God of our Master Jesus Christ, the God of glory, to make you intelligent and discerning in knowing him personally. Your eyes focused and clear, so that you can see exactly what he is calling you to do. Grasp the immensity of his glorious ways of life he has for his followers.
Man, what a great prayer. If everybody found that out in their life, what a different world this would be.
Absolutely.
So before we move on, we'll talk a little bit about our story, how New Day came to be. And I was actually working with the lead pastor of another church. His name was Justin Setzer. And he took a month-long sabbatical just to kind of reevaluate his calling, just reconnect with God. And during that time, which he did not know because he was not in contact with the church, but our current church was given an offer on the building, and it was actually above and beyond market value. So when Pastor Justin came back, he told the board that he felt called to open a church in the Odessa, Florida area at 54 and the Suncoast. While at the same time, the board then said, well, we can actually do that because we have an offer on the church. So February 25th, 2018, we actually launched New Day exactly where God ordained it to be at 54 and the Suncoast.
Absolutely.
And through this, though, as our church was growing and really carrying out our mission, Justin's decided that, he should really raise up, because we're all raising up the next generation, he felt led to raise up a new pastor. And he had a vision that John Shepard would be that pastor. And in August of 2019, we made that transition where Pastor John is now our lead pastor, and Pastor Justin transitioned into being a teaching pastor. And here we are today.
Yes, it's an amazing story, and it's a fantastic story. But through all of that, what you're going to see most is through our story that we continue to fulfill our mission. And our mission at New Day Church is that New Day Church exists to raise up the next generation of Christ followers.
Absolutely. And our process to accomplish that mission is empowering people who empower others. And you'll notice that there's a blank, and this is where you want to start filling in the blanks, like we mentioned before. And the first blank is get empowered. Before you can empower others, you need to get empowered.
Absolutely.
And then the second point is empower others. So it's interesting, though, that word empower, it encompasses a lot. If you look it up in the dictionary, it has a lot to it. It's pretty dynamic. And we might forget that because it's kind of overused today in culture, but it means, one, to be equipped, to be equipped with a skill set and knowledge. Another aspect of it is to be encouraged. And the third part of that is to be given authority to go out to accomplish a purpose. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to equip, encourage, and then give the authority. So everything we do here at New Day fits into that. We ask the question all the time, is what we're doing empowering others, and is what we're doing allowing others to empower the next generation?
That's right. And we based all of these things off of 5 core values that we believe here at New Day Church. The first one, which is the first blank on page 8, is evangelism. We are passionate about leading people to know who Jesus Christ is and have an intimate relationship with him.
And the second one would be developers. We lovingly pour into others and lead them to become fully devoted followers of Christ and fully equipped leaders.
That's right. The third blank is sacrifice. We give up things we love for things that we love more. We want you guys to understand that we are willing to give up things now so that you can have a brighter future tomorrow.
Absolutely. And the fourth is integrity. That our yes is yes and our no is no. Whether somebody's watching or not, we want to be people of integrity.
That's right. And the last blank on that page is stewardship. We value the resources God has given us, and we want to use them wisely. So we are very diligent with the things that we get and the things that we receive, and we make sure that we are prayerfully seeking after what God wants us to do with them.
Absolutely. So our mission that we feel God has called us to do is really being accomplished in 3 areas. And this comes from a verse in Acts 1:8, and it says, "You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in all of Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." So those are the 3 areas. And the first one you see is in Jerusalem, which is our city.
That's right. And the way that we are fulfilling our mission here in our city is through 3 primary ways. The first one is services. Services are for people in all stages of their spiritual journey. But its primary purpose is to give you a genuine relationship with Christ. And we want you guys to experience Christ in new ways and new teachings and practical teachings. The next way is next steps. This what we're doing right now. This next steps helps you figure out what your next step in the journey that God has in store for your life. And the last way is getting you guys tied into small groups.
But let's take a little detour and talk about small groups. Now, maybe you're not familiar with this concept of small groups, but small groups provide 3 things. One, it's a place to connect with others.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes, we come to a church and we say hi and bye, and maybe we talk for a little bit after service, but we don't really connect on a deeper level. So meeting in a small group will allow that to happen, to connect on a more deeper level. The second thing is it's a place to protect each other. Because let's face it, we might not make the best decisions all the time. So it's a place to really open up, share what's going on in your life, and then others can, give you advice, give you some direction, so to protect you from making bad decisions in your life. Absolutely. And the third one is it's a place to grow together. Now, small groups, you should be learning something spiritual. Yeah. So the idea there is that you would be growing, you'd be learning something new, and it's a place to do that together. So some more things about small groups. They really should be less than 12 people. That's why we call them small, because beyond that, it's no longer a small group. But it should be more than 3, so somewhere there. And we will be meeting around the city. Sometimes it's in a person's home. Sometimes it could be at a coffee shop. Sometimes it could be here at our physical location outside of a service time. And 4 things to know about small groups. One is we have a free market system. And that means that it's really up to the small group leader to determine what type of group it would be. And it could be based around some hobbies. I mean, we even had a motorcycle group once. We even had like an arts and crafts group. But it should fall around one of these 8 categories or hubs that we call them. There's men's groups, women's groups, marriage, students, prayer, outreach, financial, and freedom.
Now, all of our groups happen within 3 semesters during the year. We have a winter and spring group that is basically from February to May, summer group, which is June and July, and then a fall group, which is August to November.
And the good thing about having semesters is, one, it gives the leaders time off so that, they're not doing it all the time. It also is an opportunity for you attending the group to maybe try out another group next semester, to connect with more people, things like that. And you can join a group either online. You can go to mynewday.church, which is our website, and if you click on the Connect tab, you'll see small groups. And in that, you'll find everything you're going to want to know about the group, where it's located, when it is, who's leading it, and the topic that they're going over.
And the great part, and that's number 4 here, is you can host a group. If you don't feel like you're ready to lead a group, or maybe you don't really, not sure how to lead a group, maybe it's time for you to host a group so that you can learn from somebody that knows how to lead a group.
Absolutely, and if hospitality is one of your spiritual giftings, what a better way to use it than to host a small group. Now,
the other 2 places that the Bible talks about is in all of Judea and Samaria, which is the United States of America, and to the ends of the earth, which is the entire world. And the way New Day Church fulfills those is by supporting ministries that are already established and doing amazing jobs in the United States and around the world. So that's the way we fulfill those, is by financially supporting other ministries that are very successful in what they do.
Absolutely. So our church government, I think it's important to know how a church is structured, right? Because we want checks and balances. We want to make sure that we're doing things diligently.
Absolutely.
So our church is guided by our pastors. And right now, Pastor John is our lead pastor. So it's guided by Pastor John, but it's protected by our trustees. And our board of directors is comprised of members in our church, but we want one person outside the church just to take a look, at our finances, just make sure that things are in the up and up and we're doing things correctly.
And the last thing is it's strengthened by its staff and elders. So it's through the staff that we have hired on and the elders that spiritually guide our church that we can complete and support the vision of the church that we have.
Absolutely. So how our church is funded basically is through 3 different areas, right?
That's right. And the first one we're going to talk about is tithe. And a tithe just simply means a tenth or a percentage giving. It doesn't necessarily have to be a tenth. That was just the way they did it in the Old Testament or in the law and the prophets. The way that we describe it is it should be a prayerful, willing, cheerful, planned, proportionate giving. It should be a tithe is simply something that is prayerful, willing, cheerful, planned, and proportionate to the money that you bring in. Now, the second way you can give is offerings. Now, offerings are those things that are up and above that tithe, which is that first 10% or whatever percentage it might be that you have set aside. Offerings are those special gifts when we do holiday things and things like that around the church to give specifically to a program. And then the last way is if you have a gift of giving. And I'm going to let Jeff tell you about this amazing story that we heard about a friend of his.
Yeah, so the gift of giving is a spiritual gift. And I know of a couple who has this gift. And believe it or not, they were staying in a hotel and they found $10,000 cash in their hotel room. And when they went to the hotel staff to turn it in, they said they didn't want anything to do with it. So they were able to take that money and turn around and give it. So the idea there is if somebody has this gift, they're supernaturally blessed, which in turn, they can give that to others.
Awesome. That is so amazing. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about, you can find on page 14 if you're following along, is becoming a member. Now, what we're going to look at for the next couple minutes is the New Day Church membership agreement.
So the idea here is it's an agreement, right? There's plenty of churches out there, but if you choose that you want New Day to be your church home, we would ask you to agree to these 4 things.
Absolutely. And the first one we're going to look at is that you agree that you will protect the unity of the church. Because unity is key and instrumental when it comes to keeping the body in tune with the Holy Spirit, right? And the ways that you can help keep the unity of the church is by acting in love towards other members, by simply doing what Jesus told them at the Last Supper when he said to love one another as I have loved you.
Absolutely. And another way to do that is refusing to gossip. And I like what I've heard the definition of gossip. And gossip is basically talking to somebody about somebody else in which they have no direct authority over that individual.
Correct.
So an example would be, and this hasn't happened yet, but let's just hypothetical say, you saw something going on in the kids area, for example, and you didn't like what was going on. Gossip would be telling other people about that who have no control over that area. But if you went and talked to the New Day Kids director about it, well, then that's not gossip because that person has direct control over that area.
Correct.
So we don't want to gossip. I mean, obviously not here at New Day, but anywhere really, gossip is not encouraged.
And the last way you protect the unity of the church is simply by following the leaders. It's just like the childhood game that you played all the time. You want to follow those people that God has put into places of authority, whether it be a volunteer leader who's leading a small group or an actual staff member. By following their authority, you help keep the church united.
Right, and this doesn't mean agree with everything they do.
Correct.
And if you do disagree with them, and that's fine, you should voice that to the specific leader. Once again, because if you address the leader, then it's no longer gossip, right?
Correct. And then the next thing that we're going to ask you to agree to is that you're going to share the responsibility of the church. And the way that you share this responsibility, the first and probably the most important one, is that by praying for its growth and its health.
Absolutely. And the second one is inviting the unchurched to attend. So we want to raise up the next generation.
Yeah.
Well, without them hearing, how will they know?
Correct. And the last way that you can help share the responsibility is we consider everybody at New Day Church, every member, a greeter. So be warm, be welcoming to those that are visiting the church.
Absolutely. And if you think of New Day as your home, well, then it would be just like your actual home. If somebody came to visit your home, you wouldn't ignore them. You would try to greet them warmly.
That's right. That's right. Because we believe that New Day Church is called to be an Acts 15 church. We do not want to make it difficult for those who are trying to find out who Jesus is.
Absolutely.
And the last thing we want you to agree to is...
It's not the last thing, but it's the next thing.
The next thing, sorry about my verbiage, that you will serve the ministry of the church. Serve the ministry of the church. And the way that you do this, the first way you do this is by discovering your gifts and your talents, which we will gladly help you do in step 2, serve of our next steps.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to go through the process there. The next one is being equipped to serve by the pastor. So the idea is our messages here at New Day are very practical. We're going to give you practical steps, right, to equip you. And then, once again, that goes back to the empowerment, right? Equipping is part of that word there. So the idea is you want to be able to be in a position to receive that knowledge and actually use it.
And then the last way you can serve the ministry of church is by developing the next generation of Christ followers. And when we're talking about the next generation of Christ followers, that's not necessarily the kids or the youth, but that might be somebody who's new to the faith and just starting their faith journey with God.
Absolutely. And that, once again, that means taking it a step further. So maybe you've heard a great message here. Well, then maybe you can point others to watch the message, right?
That's right.
Send them to the website. Maybe you've learned something from small group. Well, then again, teach them that information, develop them to take it one step further.
Yep. And again, now this is the last thing that we will ask you to agree to, is that you will support the testimony of the church. And the way that you help support the testimony of the church and the things that we do here is simply by attending the church in small groups faithfully. We understand that you won't be here every week. Life happens and things happen, vacations, big family events. You might have a child born into your family and you want to go visit them. We get that. But as faithfully as you can, attend our church and attend the small groups.
Absolutely. And another point is that we want to live a godly life.
Absolutely.
Right? If we're supporting the testimony of New Day, then we want to be acting in accordance with New Day is teaching.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean perfect life, but we're moving in that direction.
Correct. And then the last way, again, is by giving regularly. And we just want to remind you that the way that we believe you should give is prayerfully, willing, cheerful, planned, and proportionate to all those things that God is giving you.
Awesome. Well, if you agree to those 4 things and you feel like New Day is going to be your church home, then you'll notice on the next page is our New Day Church membership application. Okay? So just like those 4 bullet points, we have 4 things here, 4 requirements. And the first one is, have you committed your life to Jesus Christ and trusted Him with salvation? And if the answer is yes, then we would just simply ask you to put when and where. And it could be in this very moment, right now, as you're hearing this.
And the next one is, second question is that, have you been water baptized since you've committed your life to Christ? If you have, put yes. And then just, if you remember when and where it happened. Like for me, I've been baptized 3 times in my life. Once as a kid because I didn't understand it.
Right.
I didn't know what it was all about. Once as a youth I went to a youth camp. Everybody was getting baptized, so I got baptized. But it wasn't until I got back actually from my first tour to Iraq and I actually understood what God had done in my life and I was water baptized that I actually believed that I was truly baptized in water.
Awesome. And if you want to be baptized here at New Day, just simply check that box and we will reach out to you to discuss more about what baptism actually means and then provide you with an opportunity to actually do that.
And then the next question is, have you completed step 1? If you're at this point in the video, you can mark yes and put today's date down. You have completed step 1.
Absolutely. And then the 4th is just, do you agree to the membership agreement, those 4 bullet points? If you do agree to it, check yes. And if you actually are younger than 18, we would ask you to check that box as well.
Absolutely. And then you would simply print and sign your day with today's date.
Absolutely. So then the next page is just your contact information, preferred method of contact, whether it be text messages, phone calls, emails, whatever. So that if we have important information to give to you, we know how to do so. And then the remaining of step 1 is just statement of faith. You may have questions about what New Day believes, and all that would be in statement of faith. You could read through this later at your own leisure. But that actually concludes step 1, connect.
Thanks for joining us, and we hope to see you at step 2, serve.
Take care.